Brilliant. So thank you everyone for coming to what is I describe as the graveyard shift of TFM&A. So I really appreciate you waiting until the end of the day to come along to my presentation. My name is Sandra McDill and I'm the Global Client Services Director at TagMan. And my presentation today is called Big Data, Better Bookings, Driving Sales and ROI with Cross-Channel Attribution. So here is the agenda I'm going to take you through. So first of all, I'm going to set the scene for you, tell you a little bit about what TagMan does and a bit about where the market is right now. Then I'm going to take you through my view of attribution before I take you through our case study, which is from our client Air New Zealand. Then I'm going to talk to you about how you can become a big marketer. And there will be time at the end for a Q&A, so if you do have any questions, just hang on to them until the end and someone will be able to come around with a roving mic for you. So if you're tweeting, not texting, then you can use our Twitter handles, which are @TagMan, and mine is @SandraL.McDill. So, becoming a big marketer. So I speak to marketing directors, marketing managers, marketing professionals every single day. And so I understand the challenges that a number of you will face in this world of marketing. And from that, I've taken a view of some of the things that kind of come across as common themes and common topics to share with you today. So the first one, and probably one of the most important, I'm sure you'll agree, is marketing agility. So in digital marketing, things that happen in a second or in a minute out in the external world can impact what's happening to your digital marketing campaigns. So this could be something seen as an opportunity to your business or something that could be seen as a threat. And you need to be able to react immediately. This is why it's so important that the marketing campaigns you have and the technology you engage with are things that could be changed within a few seconds or a few minutes. So I'm sure you'll all agree that that's something that you really need to be able to focus on in the coming years. But importantly too is data. So my presentation obviously uses the word big data, and I'm sure if you've been to other presentations today you'd have heard that phrase too. Now for me, big data is quite a broad term and sometimes quite a scary term to marketers to think about what you're going to do with all of this information. But for me, it's about going back to the basics. It's knowing what you have right now in your business, and it's knowing about what you need to get hold of to be able to make those really smart insights. So my advice to marketers is always to go back and have a look and see what you have right now. What are you collecting? What's the format? Is it what you need? And that way you can start to understand what data you need for the future. It sounds pretty obvious to say obsessed with revenue. I'm sure any of you who are marketing managers in the room will know that revenue is one of the most important things in your roles, but you can sometimes get really caught up in the concept of customers or attribution, all of these topics that you'll hear about today, but it's always really important to bring it back to revenue. Saw a number of clients going under at the beginning of the year, big brands like H&V and Jessops that we have all heard of, that we all love, but let's face it, if the money's not coming in, then obviously you're not going to be able to stay afloat. For me, what's really important is understanding where your money's coming from. So who's driving it right now? Who's making your sales, whether or not it's the low order values, the high order values, and what types of customers are you going to be driving money for you in the future as well? Talking about customers, I think days are gone where we put customers into buckets. We no longer talk about people as ABC1s and this type of high profile, high flyer. It's now about each individual customer that comes to your website and that experience. And this is about personalising that experience for them. So you'll hear today, I'm sure you've heard about Omnichannel, this concept that people, whether they're offline or online, have the same experience with your brand. But that's so important in online marketing. And when you're looking at data, it's really important to understand where those customers have been and what you can do in the future to make that journey even more personalised and enhanced. And finally, embracing marketing technology. Now, it's all great that you're in the room, so I'm sure that you're doing that already, but you'd be surprised how many marketing directors still don't understand the different types of marketing technologies that are out there. For me, every marketing manager now needs to be a digital geek. You need to know what's going on under the hood of your website. You can no longer just rely on knowing the basics. And so it's really important to be able to embrace these new technologies and understand how they can work for your website and your business. So a bit about TagMan to put it into context for you. So TagMan was founded in 2007 as the pioneer in the tag management space. And we now do tag management, but we're also a data management platform, having just released our new platform called Leap just a couple of days ago. So we actually serve 6 billion tags per month in over 80 countries to over 120 clients. We've got an office here in London and also one in New York. And you can see from some of the clients that we've got there that these are big clients with a lot going on in their websites. I can tell you it takes a lot to be able to manage that type of activity. If they weren't doing it through TagMan, it would be a whole lot of problems. But what these clients face every day is this. It's a world of multi-channel where there's so much going on a site. So gone are the days if you were running a marketing campaign that you would only be looking at PPC and SEO. Now you've got to be thinking about your email providers. Are you doing retargeting? What's going on your mobile site? What's going on with your app? It's an absolute headache, and I don't envy you at all. Also, it's really important to think about things that are going on offline as well. So one of the stats that I like is, according to Forrester, by 2016, over 44% of total retail sales will be influenced by the web, whether that was before they went in store or whether or not they decide to purchase after they've been in store. And again, this comes back to that point earlier on about the likes of Jessops and HMV, and a lot of criticism that came out when they went under is that they didn't have alignment between what was happening in their stores and what was happening on their websites. So it's a really difficult world for any client who's got this number of activity happening. And that's why attribution is so important, to be able to bring all of that information together in one place. So what is attribution? So quite simply for me, attribution is just understanding the full picture behind every sale. So I'm not going to give you lots of fancy quotes about what that is. I'm just going to tell you that. It's just understanding what's happening. I think some of the times, some of the clients that we talk to get really worried when they come up on the topic of attribution. It's going to be really complex. It's going to take some time to be able to implement. But that really isn't the case at all. You can make a change when you go back to your office tomorrow just by having a look at under the hood of what your marketing campaigns are doing. When you've got this type of information, when you understand the value that each channel is giving you, that's when you can make those informed decisions about your marketing strategy. So some stats here for you too from eConsultancy. This is from November last year. And these are really interesting for me, and I wanted to share them with you, that 54% of businesses that they surveyed now have an attribution strategy. So it's brilliant for the market that that's more clients than not are obviously looking at attribution, but that's still a number of people who aren't. Of those that were, 70% of people said that they were doing it to justify their marketing spend. This was particularly interesting for me because I think that there's definitely a myth in the marketplace that you only look at attribution when you want to save costs. But it's interesting that 70% of the people said it was to justify what they're already spending online. And for those people that weren't doing anything, 60%, the majority, said that the barrier is because they have different data sources. This is absolutely what we see every day. Back to the slide I just showed you, you can see if you've got marketing data coming from your SEO agency, from your PPC, from your affiliate, it's going to be incredibly hard to match that data all together. So for me, and I got a few jokes from my team when I made this slide, for me the crown of last click is finally starting to slip. Now that we've got into that 54%, the majority of clients that were surveyed by eConsultancy are now looking beyond last click. And I think that this is a really important part of the marketplace and how we go forward. So what can you do to get the attribution advantage? Well, like I say, get off last click. But what I'm not telling you to do is go away and make a dramatic change to your marketing strategy. Don't want you to do that at all. I want you to just to have a think about what's going on in those previous clicks. And that way you're really going to be able to understand your customer's journey. Where have they come from? Start to ask some really interesting questions about why certain journeys are taking longer than others. Is there a trend that you might see in particular channels? And this is the type of stuff that's going to be able to arm you with objectives for the future to be able to put your new strategy together. And finally, really importantly, you need to think about how you're going to be able to optimise your media spend. So attribution isn't just, as I say, about cutting money. It's about being much smarter with the money that you have. And in that way, you're going to be able to take your marketing campaigns forward in the future and see some really big results. So now I'm going to take you through our case study. If you haven't seen it already, we do have copies on our stand that you can take away after today. So Air New Zealand, this is a picture of Chris Allison, who's from Air New Zealand, who unfortunately couldn't be with us today. But he came to us a couple of years ago with some very specific challenges that he was finding, and I'm sure some of you in the room might have these same challenges now. The first was increasing pressure on his marketing budgets. So his directors, who he was working for, were coming to him every single week and saying, guys, why are you spending this much money on display or this much money on SEO? So he had real pressure to make sure that every single penny he was spending was going on the right thing. He also equally, ironically, needed to show growth. So difficult when you're looking to cut your budgets, but what he needed to do here was in particular show growth on specific channels and specific products that he was working with. So again, it's not just about kind of being able to say you've increased sales by a certain amount, it's looking at specific products that he was working with. He was also finding it really hard to test new vendors, so he was getting inundated with free trials from new agencies or new opportunities, but his development cycle at Air New Zealand was 4 months. So unless he had something in ready for the next quarter, he had to wait 4 months to get something in place, which was just too long to be able to test things. And also, all of the technologies he was working with, although they were fantastic in their own right, they were all completely isolated. They all had different data sets, many of them had different timestamps, different formats, and it was virtually impossible for him to be able to put these together. So what did he do? Well, the first thing he did was he brought all of this data together underneath the TagMan tag management. So the picture here of a house, I find, is one of the easiest ways to explain tag management, for those of you that don't know. It's just this idea that all of these great vendors he was working with, Trade Doubler, Google, Marin, they were all able to be housed under one container tag, under TagMan, which meant as they were all performing individually on his site, they were all bringing the same data set back to the client. He also decided to look beyond the last click wins model. So he looked under the hood. Who was driving the first clicks? Who was driving the assisting clicks? Rather than just traditionally looking at who was driving the sale. He also began to look at the certain behaviours of customers on non-core products. So for him, it was a particular long-haul route that he really needed to show growth on. And so he was able to isolate those particular journeys and see if there were common trends. He was also able to take hold of those new vendor opportunities quickly as well. So he was able to put things onto his site much faster than he ever could do before to see if they were working. And he was also able to react to marketing changes and customer trends within minutes rather than waiting for months. So in the tricky world of travel, it just takes one thing to happen in the airline industry and suddenly you have to completely change your strategy. And I'm sure that many of you in different sectors have got similar scenarios. So what were the results? I'll take you through. I'm not sure if you can see that very clearly at the back because it's white writing, but I will talk you through it. So firstly, when he looked at his sales conversions per channel, he noticed that display were only responsible for 1% on a last click basis. So for those smart people in the room, if you saw that one of your channels was only driving 1% of your sales, you might well be tempted to cut that budget or completely eradicate it. And that would be very much the view on a last click basis. However, then when he looked a bit deeper, he found that 9% of sales were actually being generated through display when the sale was started with display. So this was really interesting for him and probably not a big surprise that a number of customers were seeing the Air New Zealand banners on a number of sites, clicking through, but later converting perhaps through PPC or affiliate. But really interestingly, 30% of sales were assisted by display. So display was responsible for helping the sale on 30%. So if we go back to that first thought about that 1%, had he have decided